Welcome back to the Terminator painting guide. In this one, I'm going to show you some real simple basics with freehand and hopefully take you through some of that. So, where I'm going to apply the freehand for this lesson is in this area here, around the edges. So when the mini's assembled, it will be just about visible and you can show all your friends. But we're going to put this aside for just now and we're going to do a bit of art theory. Before I touch the miniature with any paint, I'm going to have a go at practicing my pattern on a blank piece of paper with a pen and a pencil. This way I'm going to rough out any ideas I have, that sort of thing. Okay, so I want a very simple pattern and I want it to be repeating because that will look best on the eye. Now, there are plenty of much better videos on how to do drawing. I'll take you through some basics. And a lot of these you can take into your miniature painting as well. So to draw, we're going to need to draw straight lines for a start, and they're going to have to be freehand because you're not going to be able to pop a ruler onto the cape of that miniature. So it's best to practice on these nice sheets of paper first. Best way to draw a straight line is start furthest away from you and let your fingers go naturally toward the wrist. So I'm going to be traveling in this direction. That's not perfectly straight, but it doesn't have to be. But what I want to do now is create a parallel line next to it. And if you can match that, doing well. Again, a little bit better. That's pretty good. Okay, so that's how you do a straight line. You can also do curved lines as a slightly different technique. But for this one, we're just learning how to do straight lines freehand. So practice doing that a few times and then practice with a paintbrush as well before you touch the miniature. Once you've had a good practice, we're going to think of a couple of ideas on how to do it. I think I've got a few in mind, so let's give them a go. So, straight lines. And then we're going to do a simple pattern inside it. Like so. And then another parallel to the original line there. I could go for this pattern. Try something slightly different. A bit more adventurous maybe. Now, you don't have to think of your own patterns. Just a simple internet search of repeating patterns. Certain cultures, Egyptian repeating patterns, Greek repeating patterns, Roman repeating patterns. We'll find you plenty of ideas out there. Now, these don't have to be too precise because we're only practicing. You're just getting a sort of feel for it. But I'm going to add the parallel line there as well. Ruined it. There, but we get the idea. Have an idea, have a play around with what pattern you want to put on your miniature. And once you're ready, get some paintbrushes out and start practicing on a plain bit of paper, which is what I'm going to do next. I've got my Sotek green and a painting set up. I'm going to give it a practice. I'm going to try and recreate this pattern. Yep. I'm using this just to practice the techniques. Now, the paper is slightly absorbent, so it will behave differently than when it's on a miniature. I'm also very aware that's a very big pattern to fit on there, so I'm going to try and shrink it down. But this is practice. It's perfectly fine to make mistakes. So, in fact, I will try and zoom in on this one. Let's see what happens. Perfect. One nice neat movement, so starting furthest away and dragging it toward me. Like so. That's a nice neat straight line. I'm going to paint the pattern. In fact, no, I'm going to paint a second parallel line. I'm going to try and fit the pattern in between and see how I get on with that. Just because I did that movement slow didn't make it several small movements. It was still one long continuous movement. And keep that paint nice and thin. I don't normally you would see me wicking off paint and practicing on the back of my thumbnail. Because I'm painting on paper, I don't need to do that because any of that extra moisture is going to go straight into this paper. Very different to painting on miniatures. I don't think I'm doing too well so far. I'm glad I practiced. Oh, I just got a loose hair, so let's pull that out. Oh, that out of the way. Glad I got that done. Let's try it again. So starting fresh. I'm finding if I leave it on the paper and drag it, I'm losing control at the end when I need to do those sharp corners. And so I'm just lifting it completely off the paper and starting it again. And that is much neater. A bit too much paint that time. Good. I think I'm actually, that second attempt was much better. So I think it looks a little bit too chunky with two parallel lines. So now I've practiced at that scale, I'm going to try and do it even smaller on the next one. There is a limit to how small we can go because of the width of the brush. We can give it a go. There we go. I have achieved the thinner line. I didn't push it down as hard on the brush though. Let's try and repeat that pattern, but make it even smaller. I don't think that's particularly good, I'm not going to lie. Let's give it a second go at that scale. No, I don't think I was giving enough gap at the bottom, that's why. Much better. Okay. Much more impressed with that second effort. Inconsistent height and spacing. Much better when I thought it through better. So I need to transfer this onto the miniature. I'm going to start by painting a parallel line along the edges of the cloak, all three edges that we can see. Once I've done that, I'm going to try and paint that pattern in on top of it. Well, I'll try. Remembering that when you make this jump, there's going to be a difference in the performance of the paint. So I'm going to touch and then one long continuous movement to get that straight line. Ah, ruined it already. Let's try again. Oh, see, I made a mistake there, so I'm rubbing it off. So when you do this, don't use a contrast paint because it will stain that white. A layer paint that's correctly thinned down, you can just wipe off with your thumb, like I just did. Yeah, I'm sure the best commission painters out there, Golden Demon winners, would have done that in one perfect swipe, but we're not there yet. That's in the wrong place. I'll get to it. We'll adjust from there. Final edge. There we go, blocked in. Now, the real tricky part is getting that pattern all the way around. So some of the rest of the video now will be on fast forward. And there's our finished article. Now, you may have noticed I completely changed how I did the pattern from here and then onto these two parts. And that clearly shows in the finished miniature. But I don't mind, I'm still proud of it. And so should you. Whatever yours looks like, you should be proud too. Well, that was a completely optional step. You don't have to do it. But it is good to practice on these pieces, especially on cloaks where you won't see these details. But you know you've done it, and next time it will be even better. Practice makes perfect and all that. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you on the next one.